Racing games for generations have been pushing graphical fidelity on all the platforms they're released on. Games like Gran Turismo were famous for pushing the boundaries of graphics on the early PlayStations, and in a lot of ways, it's still the case today. But when a studio like Capcom decided to make a racing game for the PS2, they decided to go in a whole new direction. What they came up with was 2002's Modellista that would later see a port in the West in 2003. When that Japanese version made it over here, it saw some bonus content and was released on all platforms, including the GameCube one, which I've got here. Looking at the game, it's pretty clear that this is a little different than the typical racing games that were coming out at the time, with a really gorgeous cel-shaded art style. It's got this anime-inspired look that really stands out compared to its contemporaries. When I looked further into the game, I just got more and more sold on it. Some quick research shows that this was actually directed by Hideaki Itsuno, who you might know is the director from Power Stone 2, Capcom vs SNK 2, and Devil May Cry 3, to name a few. So we've got the developers behind some of the best fighting and action games from the mid-2000s coming together to make a racing game of all things. Not to mention, this is practically one of the only racing games Capcom ever made. With some cool visual design and a really stacked developer lineup, it's kind of surprising to see that this has become a bit of a forgotten entry in Capcom's backlog. It took me a while to find a copy for myself, but we finally got it, so let's jump right into Modellista for the GameCube. Booting up the game, you're treated to a highly edited mid-2000s intro video and the title screen.
Modellista!
Right away, this announcer caught me off guard because it's the same guy from Capcom vs SNK 2. I really loved them in that game, and I was super happy to hear them narrate this one with all the same cheesy delivery. I think they even reused some of the voice lines from that game.
Keep rocking, baby. Keep rocking, baby.
As a fan of Capcom's other fighting games, I immediately noticed the Marvel vs. Capcom 2-esque soundtrack. Especially in the menus, the music sounds like unused demos from MVC. There are some really solid songs in there though, and the music for the rest of the game is also pretty good. The game has the same composer, Tetsuya Shibata, so it makes perfect sense. While the level music isn't quite as jazzy and fun as the menus are, the game has a pretty reliable soundtrack that will be playing throughout the video. So the intro's cool, the menu songs are great, and that lovable announcer from CVS2 is back, but how does the game actually play? Well, Modellista is structured just like many of the racing games that were coming out around the time. There's about a dozen tracks, each with some variation between them, like uphill and downhill. You can play through them in this simple campaign mode that they call Garage Life. Here, you can set up a garage, select the car that you want to use, and then take it to compete in a set of races. Winning the majority of the cups in level 1 will unlock the next set to play, and so on. Along the way, you'll earn unlockable goodies like stickers for your car, decorations for the garage, new parts to tune your vehicles, or brand new cars altogether. The selection seems pretty wide too, with a good set of licensed cars from a bunch of real-life manufacturers. To start, I set up an Impreza and took it out to a few courses. From the jump, the cars in Modellista feel pretty good, but I had some problem adjusting to the controls. I noticed myself sliding around a lot and skidding and struggling to keep things aligned, but throughout my time with the game I did get a better handle of it. Thankfully the game is pretty forgiving, and I was rarely in a race that took a bit more than a little tuning to get by. There's also an auto setup feature that I used for the majority of my playthrough, but I found that at a certain point it wasn't as effective as just reading what each part did and using that to make the best choices per course. I really like racing games, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert in the genre in any capacity, so I can't verify how good this game is from a technical or control point of view. The controls seem tough but fair, and the car tuning feels pretty deep, but there also isn't that much to choose from in the long run. I usually just picked whatever piece seemed to match the weather of whatever course I was on. I definitely prefer the arcadey feel of games like Ridge Racer, but I did grow to like how this one feels to play. It was pretty easy for someone like me to skid around if I took turns with any sort of speed, but again, it got better with time, and so maybe it was just a skill issue. Either way, the gameplay is solid, but nothing too extraordinary. Like, I want to say that I have enough experience with the racing genre as a whole to make a call on how good these controls are, but, you know, it's hard to say. Let's be honest here, the only reason I decided to pick this game up in the first place were those beautiful cel-shaded graphics. For the time it came out in, it's incredibly unique and it allows Modellista to hold up really well even 2 decades later. Cars look bright and colorful, and stand out really well in these anime-styled courses. Some areas of the track can look fantastic with a really well-defined color scheme. I particularly liked Rocco Hill, where the cool blues and greens allow all the brightly colored cars to pop. The color of the environments can look so great, it's almost a shame to not use a brightly colored paint job at all times. Sure, if you put it under some scrutiny, the backgrounds can be a bit plain if you look past the trees, but since the cars are the focal point, it never really matters in actual gameplay. I typically run games here on original hardware when possible, but the cel-shaded art style scales really well in emulation. If you throw it into something like Dolphin, this game looks ridiculously good. It isn't really just the cel shading that makes the game unique though. There's an attention to detail in the UI and the graphic design that makes it all feel really cohesive. It's the reason I have the original PlayStation 2 copy on hand as well. The game has a lot of style in this original cover artwork. Between the disc and the manual, it's just all very clean. Though admittedly, the Western cover art did make things a bit more generic, it still comes through in game. There's a lot of fun menu design here as well. I like how the menus are presented in this sort of CRT filter, and how all the icons look in the car customization screen. It's not mind-blowing UI for me like Ridge Racer Type 4's was, but there's some really fun design here. I think just the concept of racing cars comes with this sort of aesthetic of, you know, industry and technology that always create these really fun UIs in racing games. Looking back at the actual game again, I have to highlight the nighttime levels. I really love the way they have these clear circles of light in front of the cars, and how they have this flat drawn-on glare from the headlights. There's just something so attractive as well about darkened city skylines with all the windows lit up. It just makes me really glad to see that there's an option to turn off the HUD as well, in case you want to just take in the vibes. Plus, there's a little Mega Man Battle Network sign on one of the tracks. Making my way through each of these cups, I was getting more and more familiar with Modellista. I found it pretty easy to get first place in the first 2 levels, and swap to new cars as I went through. The twisting curves of the 2 hill tracks were absolutely the hardest to get through, especially before I started manually tuning my cars. But I started to get a feeling that the game is pretty limited in tracks to race through. About 2 or 3 hours in, courses are already being repeated, and you're pretty much stuck with the same Tokyo map. But now it's raining. This sort of thing was pretty common for racing games for a long time, but I honestly couldn't tell you if it's gotten any better in modern racing games because the only ones I've played are Forza Horizon. It's just notable for me here because I was really enjoying seeing what new stages I could race around in and get some more of those great environments. There are about a dozen stages in total if you count variations, but it could have been worse since the original version didn't even have those 2 American tracks. Even if they're just big ovals, anything helps. Speaking of the original Japanese version, there's actually a few things that are kind of interesting to take note of. Something I heard after playing the game through fully on the GameCube was that the controls in the PS2 version, exclusive to Japan and I think Europe, actually has a completely different control scheme. Having now played through some tracks on the Japanese version through emulation, it actually does control completely different. The original version just controls generally calmer, and you can't slide around the course the same way that you do in the GameCube one. The GameCube, Xbox, and American PS2 version I believe is referred to as the US Tuned Edition. I did see a lot of complaints and sort of comments from people online saying that the original Japanese version had that much better controls, but I am one to disagree. While the US version's controls are certainly slipperier, I don't think they're more or less fun when you got used to it. Having played through the whole game on GameCube at this point, I actually kind of enjoyed the slipperiness. It definitely feels unintentional though, so I will give it that. There are dozens of other small changes throughout these two versions, but if you have tried them before, let me know which one you prefer. The game overall is pretty limited after you do the first few races, and once you've played through every track a couple times over, the content feels pretty dry. Maybe if new cars were more staggered out, it would be better, since you could reasonably pick 2 cars from the beginning and go through the entire game. At the very least, I could have some fun decorating my cars and garage with the stuff I was unlocking. I'm not sure if these stickers are GameCube exclusive, but I unlocked some Beautiful Joe and Piano 3 stickers, as well as some Mega Man ones. It really made me miss the era when Mega Man was relevant to Capcom. I have to say, the garage and car editing is reasonably fun. Anytime I swapped to a new car, I felt pretty obligated to try to give it a custom paint job. There's also a replay remix system that's pretty silly but fun to play around with for a few minutes. It's got a bunch of these mid-2000s filters and all their over-the-top coolness. You can add some sound effects as well, but controlling it all is a little bit cumbersome. It's dumb fun and not really something that's worth, taking and making something out of. But maybe some folks back in 2003 put some awesome highlight reels together. Here's a sick demo I made, check it out. I looked Auto Modellista up to get a bit more context, and it seems that the original version of the game was made as part of an initiative at Capcom to develop games with online support. The other games being Resident Evil Outbreak and a little-known game called Monster Hunter. It's pretty funny to me to think that Auto Modellista has been pretty much completely forgotten, while Monster Hunter is arguably Capcom's biggest IP. But the idea that this is meant to be an online game played against real people put a lot of it into context for me. The content is limited but highly customizable because at the end of the day you were supposed to bring your specially designed cars online to share and compete with. The GameCube did have some very limited online support, but it was basically the least online connected of its competitors. So I might have missed the boat by buying this version. I'd have to assume the Xbox version would be the best of the 3 then, but it's not like those servers have been up in decades anyways. Really, all this just put the structure of Auto Modellista into perspective for me, and I think it's something that's important to consider. Once you get to the last few levels, you have to start doing multiple races in a row to win. First up is the Urban Championship, focused on fast highway courses, and second is the Mountain Championship, focusing on those twisting hill tracks. This is where I actually had to start paying attention to what cars and parts I was using. I started using the Japanese version's cover car, the RX-7, and just barreling down these streets was so much fun. Even still, I had to really focus if I wanted to keep up, and I ended up finding some tricks that may or may not be intentional. See, when you hit a wall in Auto Modellista, your car will likely spin out or bounce off in some erratic way, but there's no actual crashing. And so on some courses I realized that you could hit a turn in the right way at a certain speed and then just straighten your car out. It's this incredibly janky maneuver, but it was really fun to do. The Urban Championship allowed me to cheese out some wins with this wall thing, but the Mountain Championship was a proper test. You have to do both hill courses from top to bottom and back, and I really struggled to get first on these. I tried different cars and setups, but ultimately settled back on the Impreza I used from before. For one reason or another, this setup allowed me to handle the courses much better, and I eventually managed to clutch out first place. After finishing those 2 sets of races, I had thought that the game was over, but there was still one final level unlocked. Of course, the game can't be over without the namesake Auto Modellista Championship. This consists of 7 races through the majority of the game's tracks, minus the hill courses, probably because you can't change your car between races. If you can manage the Urban Championship, this is basically the same thing but longer. Going through all the levels one last time is a great way to finish off the game, but there was one last track that I'd completely forgotten about. Race 7 was on Suzaka, which I realized hadn't come up at all through the campaign mode, but I had played this one time in the car tester when I had just started the game. When I first did the track, I had no idea what I was doing, so it was really fun to look back at my footage and see that I had so much better of a handle on it now. It isn't specific to this game, but there's something I absolutely love with racing games of this type. The feeling of just concentration on the game and nothing else. You just have to focus so hard trying to nail your lines as you just barely catch up to the person ahead of you, and then slide into first place. That stuff is incredibly satisfying, and it's such a unique aspect of racing games. There's nothing left to do but focus on the track. Races like this had me gripping my controller and locked on my screen, making tiny adjustments while I made every little turn count. It's really easy to lose control in this game, and even in the last few races I was sliding in circles, but I was laser focused, having a great time. In the credits, you get treated to this cool backing track and a neat little animated sequence. And after that's done, you can unlock a special model car with one more bonus track. Tamiya is named after the Japanese RC car company, and it's a full course that sets your cars down to RC scale, complete with an electric motor sound and antenna. It's a cute bonus for a game, and I honestly didn't expect it at all. I'm actually kind of familiar with Tamiya cars, having owned one as a kid, so it was pretty awesome to see. I threw on the one lyrical song that they have, and I jumped in the old Impreza, which felt like an appropriate way to finish the game.
Check it out!
You know, racing games are funny to me because they used to be so commonplace that I often kind of don't even consider myself a fan of them, despite having played dozens over the years. But from those games, Auto Modellista really stands out because of that really cool art style. While I can't say that this is the pinnacle of racing games, I have to admit that the art style and the music and that sort of thing kind of carry it in a way. Really, it's just the vibes that I'm here for. It's got a great style, but it is just a blanket on top of a pretty standard racing game. I have to admit though that without the online portion of the game, it can feel a little bare bones compared to when it probably came out. The game hasn't been re-released in any meaningful way and probably never will be because of how many licensed cars show up. And because of that, it's pretty tough to find a copy for yourself. It took me forever to find my copy here, and it doesn't even have the manual. In cases like this, I'm always glad that emulating is an option. But even still, I think Auto Modellista is at least worth a look at if you're a fan of racing games from the time. Thanks one more time for watching to the end of the video, and if you liked what you saw, leave a like on the video and share the video to somebody that might be interested. I love covering these niche and forgotten games on YouTube, but I think that this sort of thing has trouble gaining traction here, so sharing it around helps out a lot. Of course, you can also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this coming up, and if you want, you can go visit the channel and see what other videos I've got there already. It's a bit more old, but I did a video on Ridge Racer Type 4 that I was pretty happy with at the time. It is a little more dated, but I think that it's pretty cool and it could use some love. With that said, thanks one more time for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.